Hi, welcome to this Kickstarter preview video for Age of Inventors. Age of Inventors is a brand new game hitting Kickstarter, which is all about the golden age of invention. The game will take players into the fascinating era of the 19th century, the second half of the 19th century, where all these brilliant minds, brilliant inventors like Albert Einstein, Marie Curie, Nikola Tesla, and so many others out there managed to conceive and construct some amazing, fascinating inventions that will change the way people live, think, and communicate in the course of the game. And of course, take humanity and get them into a bright new future. So, that being aside, because it's a fascinating new theme for me and I really like the theme, I think many people out there like the theme, the game comes with so many clever ideas and a robust and straightforward gameplay. I'm going to show you later on how the game plays, take you through all the rulebook and all the rules so that you can see exactly how the game plays, the game flow, and come back at the end of this video for some final wrap-up. But keep in mind that this is a game that really shines on the basis of great mechanics blended together with fast, simple, but extremely interesting and strategic gameplay. I loved the way that it only lasts 4 rounds, though the later rounds tend to be a bit longer. But in those rounds, players have 2 phases in each round. You have the upkeep phase, which goes first, like in contradiction to most of the games out there, and then you have the player's phase. Through the upkeep phase, you gain your lab workers and lab assistants back, you gain some funds, you activate your lab, you draft some new equipment for your lab, and then in the player's phase you get to use your actions by either selecting a lab assistant on a location on the board or your personal lab player board, or switching on one of your switches to do one of the things that it allows you to do. So players essentially are playing either big corps or universities or some exceptional laboratories out there, trying to employ inventors, get them to conceive ideas, inventions, and make them happen in reality by placing them on the board. The game shines on tile placement, simple but extremely fun and interesting and strategic tile placement, worker placement, where you can send your lab assistant to gain the conversion from the different inventors. You can use both your own and your opponents, but just you pay them the conversion rate in order for you to convert into some different resources. You can also switch switches on. You have 4 switches that you can use in each round, and you can use them to either grab new conventions, conceive them, or grab new inventors, hire them essentially, or place them on the board so that they can go and give you ideas if they are inventors, or awards and gaining advancement on the tracks if they are inventions. So inventions get to drive you up 3 tracks: the industrial track, the economic track, and the academic track, which award points for higher position at the end of the game. But you also gain points from cleverly getting breakthrough tokens. If you completely surround one of the inventors, you get to retire them, and essentially you're trying to do this for the opponent inventors, because they lose the ability of the inventor, and you grab one VP token, a breakthrough token. You can also gain victory points by getting precious project tiles, which are converting any leftover resources at the end of the game into victory points. But also you gain victory points from, of course, your advancement in the game. So overall, this is a very, very interesting game. I liked and I loved the way it excels in simplicity yet depth. It has a fantastic design. It is a streamlined, robust, and very straightforward design. The flow is fantastic. The game really shines on quick plays, so you don't get to wait around in order to get to play your next turn, etc. Most of the actions in the upkeep phase are simultaneous. You already know what you want to do when your turn comes. The game is really, really asymmetric if you play different boards and laboratories, because they start with different starting resources and so on. So there are a lot of things. The tile placement is exceptional because it's important where you put your inventors or your inventions in the game. So all these things matter, and they deliver a really, really well done, play-tested and robust gameplay. I had a ton of fun playing it, a multiplayer, a 2-player. I love the game, so let me show you how the game plays. I get back into the table and explain all the rules, and we'll be back at the end of this video for a final wrap-up and some final opinions from my experience with the game. So I'm going to put the Kickstarter campaign page in the description of this video so you can find more information. It launches soon, so don't miss out on this bright, new and fascinating game out there. The golden age of invention begins. As humanity is entering the second half of the 19th century, a series of inventions is about to change where and how people live, work, travel and communicate. The age of inventors is upon us. Will you lead humanity's charge into a bright new future? Players run laboratories owned and funded by different institutions or patrons by purchasing equipment, recruiting inventors and helping these inventors complete their inventions to advance humanity's progress in different tracks: industrial, economic and academic. The player whose laboratory contributes the most to society will be crowned the winner at the end of the game. Who would you like yourself to be at the golden age of invention? Age of Inventors is a fun family board game. Its goal is to help the players enjoy quality time together while competing on an interesting theme. Although you're bound to learn some things by playing this game, this is not the primary goal of this game. The aim is to create the feeling of the Age of Invention and intrigue curious minds. Through love of science, invention and innovation, what the game is trying to pass to the players is this feeling. Information in the game is based on reality, but may not directly reflect history. If you want to learn more about the information, it is encouraged to research yourself on some of these topics at a library. Many academics today argue about who truly invented some of those inventions, and the exact date is to be yet determined, confirmed or revealed, if not already. The game is intended to spark interest in the Age of Invention by offering a rough idea in the context of a board game. It is suggested that you follow your interests from there and hunt for real knowledge in books, research and publications, as well as libraries and universities. Hope is that you will fall in love of this era as we did. Now let's quickly familiarize ourselves with the components of the game. First of all, we have the main board that you see in front of you. It has many areas, like the main area where inventions and inventors are deployed. There is an offering of inventors, a stack for inventions. This is also the board, but I just put it there for convenience. This is the respective tiles for each of the inventors that they're going to play once acquired. You have various events, you have equipment, you have projects that you can run, and these are the various tracks, 3 tracks as we have seen, the academic, the economic and the industrial, which is the first one. And you have also various spots for worker placement that we're going to explain throughout the course of the game. The game is magnificent. There is already an unboxing video of this prototype. Again, keep in mind that this is prototype, it's not a final production game, that's even though it looks fantastic. And there is a lot of different cards. This is a stack of inventors here, and there are some already on display. These are the boards of the players. They are dual boards, which are also recessed from both sides. As you can see, you can play either the corporation with this play style, for example a trading firm, or the corporation with this playing style, which is a manufacturing company. It has a dial for the funds. It has switches where you can switch on in order to do something in the game. We're going to explain. Slots for 3 of the inventors that you can have at any given time in the course of the game. And research sections where you put your equipment, your lab equipment that you acquire from this area over there. This is the starting information that you have and the starting resources, as well as your special ability and another personal worker spot just to be able to grab one of the resources in case you're running low on something to unlock the flow of the game. Again, there are 4 of these, and we have the corporation, we have the university polytechnic, which is there, and the innovator with 2 options to be played as well as the government that can be played as authoritarian or liberal. And again, all these offer a tremendous amount of replayability because they have different play styles and they have different starting resources and different bonuses as well on them. In the rulebook, you'll find a guidance and some advice on which type of gameplay each of those encourage, so that you can select upon what you wish. Then this pile of inventors that again, it's just a pile that you have either spread out or face up on the side of the board. You go through them to find the respective inventor that you are acquiring, because once you acquire an inventor from the inventor's deck, which is the one over there, you need to find the matching inventor tile and get it next to your playing area for you to be able to play and use in the course of the game. There are also invention hexes, There are quite a few. I think there are 48. Maybe there are more through the Kickstarter campaign if more things are unlocked. And the various things that can be invented, that they have different tremendous impact on society as well. And people are trying to get those on the board together with inventors and score points. This is a display in the offering. There are 3 always on the bottom corner of the board. Again, we're going to explain it. There is a breaking news cards deck, which is this one. This acts like some type of event. There is a phase where players vote either this or that will happen in each of the 4 rounds of the game, and these take place affecting the gameplay of the round. And there's a lot of variability since there are quite a few. Here is, I think this should be a tile here with an indicator marking if it is the first, the second, the third, or the 4th round, but I don't know, most probably it's going to be placed in the center. Again, this is prototype. As I mentioned, we have a lot of inventors. We have different resources. As you can see on the top right, there are various resources like engineering resources, chemistry resources, and physics resources, and there are ideas at the end, which we're going to take a closer look later on. Similarly, there are a lot of custom meeples and components and markers on player's color, so each player is going to get 1 player board, but also they're going to get 1 handy player aid, which has the sequence of the upkeep phase, which goes first in each round, and then the player's phase, which goes second in each of the rounds. So this is very useful. And then they have in the player color different markers. They have, of course, for example, the lab assistants, the workers that are going to be sending in the game, in various spots for worker placement. They have the books, which are essential in the gameplay and a very nice mechanic as well. They have different markers. Each player has 1 marker for each of the 3 tracks. They have the marker for the industrial, the marker for the economic, and the marker for the academic track, which they go on these horizontal tracks. And also there are the tracks here, which are for turn order and selecting of lab equipment. There are medals, 3 medals. Whoever is in ahead of the rest on this track, they get the respective medal, and they give them a bonus if they do so in the course of the game. There is a pouch. In the pouch, which you don't see, they're going to be included all these different breakthrough tokens. Essentially, they are tokens awarded in the course of the game, and there are various VPs for performing various stuff, and you grab 1 from the pouch. Of course, there are also lots of different additional things, like for example these projects that you see here. These are projects that you acquire, and you can exchange your leftover resources at the end of the game based on these projects and experiments, as they say them, as they call them in victory points. And of course here we have the last marker in player's color, which is the ingenuity marker over there. So overall, these are all the components. Now let's see the player lab setup. There are 4 labs available, as I said, 1 for each player: the government lab, corporation lab, university lab, and innovator lab. In order to decide who gets to choose their lab first, the players can either randomly distribute them or test their knowledge on the great inventions. This is really fun. In that case, they draw a random invention tile, and each player guesses the year which it was invented, and you check the back of the cover of the rulebook to learn the date, and then you can choose labs based on whose response was the most accurate or close to the accurate one. Having selected labs, each player now gets to choose which side they want to use. Each side has different attributes, different abilities, and players can learn more about the special abilities of each side of their lab in the rulebook and decide their playstyle. And players should place their lab in front of them with the selected side facing up. In the order of the labs chosen, each player chooses a color and takes their player insert and meeples of that color. Each player takes 1 of the 4 identical reference cards and places it somewhere nearby for his reference, and each player collects 1 of each scientific resources, which they are 1 resource of each of the types. These are the scientific resources: physics, chemistry, and then of course you have the engineering. Also, you get 1 idea. You set your funds at 5, and you're ready to go. Following that, each player draws 2 inventors from the inventor's deck. They examine them, they choose which one they want to keep, and they assign them in one of the slots like that, and not vertical, because vertical means depleted. So it is place the card like that in one of those 3 slots. Also, the other one goes at the back of the inventor's deck, and subsequently after that they draw 4 invention tiles from the invention tiles stack. Again, they examine them, and based on their plan they select 2, keeping them in their hand, hidden from the rest of the players, and they return the other 2 at the bottom of the respective stack of inventions, which I remind you is located over there on the bottom left side of the main board. This is the stack, and here's the display with 3 available. Last but not least, each player collects any additional resources indicated on their lab, shown underneath their initial ingenuity score on their player board, which is, as you see here. So for this player, they're going to collect 1 randomly drawn invention from the inventor's invention stack and add it in their hand, plus the resources indicated here, or the ideas. These are 2 ideas, so they're going to get 2 more ideas. And now they have already completed their lab setup. Now, let's see the main board setup. First, place the board in the middle of the table where all players can easily reach it. Then, set the round counter to 1. Each player places their ingenuity meeple on their ingenuity position on this section of the board, and then the ingenuity position for your lab is indicated on the top of your lab's banner, which is there. So here for the green is 4 and for the purple is 3. Then you shuffle experiment tokens into a stack and place the stack face down on its position at the top center of the board, which is here, and this is the stack. Subsequently, you shuffle the equipment tokens into a stack and place the stack face down on its position at the top left of the board, over there. You populate the equipment offer by drawing equipment from the stack and placing them in the offer, starting from the position with the icon funds 0, and then placing as much equipment as the number of players plus 1. So you take from here as many as there are players plus 1. In a 4-player game like the one I've set here, it's 4 plus 1, 5, and you start populating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to your player count plus 1. Then you shuffle the breaking news cards into a deck and you place it on the corresponding place on the main board. Shuffle the invention tiles over here into a stack, give them a good shuffle, and then place them on the respective spot on the bottom left of the board. Then populate the offer by placing the top invention tile face up on the position indicated by ideas 1, meaning that the first one goes here, which costs 1 idea to conceive. Then the second one goes here, which costs 2 ideas to conceive, and then the third one goes here with a cost of 3 ideas respectively. Once this is done, everything is in its place, then you move to the inventor's cards, which are over here, and you populate the respective area. And this is a cost in funds. This is the number, how many funds it costs for you to employ this inventor. And you populate this truck and you put the remaining over there. First one goes on funds 2 spot, then second one on funds 4, and the third one goes on funds 6. Last but not least, players can leave the inventor stack hexes in the insert, or if there is space on the table, they can spread it all around, all over, so that you can have them easily accessed. In any case, this is a pile that once you acquire the respective inventor card, you go through the stack and also pick up the matching hex respectively. So it's either or. The game structure. The game consists of rounds, and each round consists of 2 phases, the upkeep phase and the player's phase. Again, summarized on the reference, the upkeep phase and then the player's phase. Each round starts with the upkeep phase, and players go through all the steps, most of which are performed by all players simultaneously. When the upkeep phase is concluded, the player's phase starts, and in the player phase, the players' turn are performing actions, and when all players have concluded, their round ends. Just in the first round, you're going to skip some of the steps of the upkeep phase and go directly to 6 draft equipment and 7 activate your lab equipment, and then move into player phase just for round 1. Then for the subsequent rounds, you're going to play all stages of upkeep phase and then the player phase as normal. The game end. The game will end when any of the 2 conditions is met. The 4th and final round is concluded, or a player places an inventor or invention on the last empty hex on the board grid, and in this case the game ends immediately, concluding even if players had more actions to perform. When the game ends, the players add all their points gathered by the tracks, experiments, breakthrough tokens and ingenuity. The player with the most points is the winner. Now, let's see the 2 phases in more detail. First, we have the upkeep phase, which is the simplest. Turn your reference card so that the upkeep phase side is up, and the reference card can guide you on the steps that take place during this upkeep phase. Always remember, you have an easy guide. So, let's see what's going on here with the upkeep phase. First, you collect back your lab assistants and initiative tokens simultaneously. So the initiative tokens will be here to indicate turn order, so you'll pick them up here and put them back there or next to you, doesn't matter. And then the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to get back all your lab assistants, which are going to be either from spaces, worker spots on the board, from the ingenuity track, from experiments, or from inventors where you have sent them to use their conversion rate respectively, and they would be located in this case on their respective books on those inventors. You will take them and put them back into your stock. Another slot where you can have, of course, worker lab assistants is on your player board, where you can send it here on this location for getting 1 scientific resource. If you have done so, then you take it back from there too. Then second, you will reset your switches and inventor abilities. This is simultaneous. You reset your switches will be most probably switched on, and then you put them off so that you can use them for the next round. And if you had any inventor's ability used, for example, it would be sideways beneath the respective slot, then you turn it so that it's facing you, and that means that it's active for the next round. Increase the round counter, move the clock hand from the current round to the next one, so we would move to the next round. 4. Draw a breaking news card, which is from this area over here. You draw one of these cards and then you read it, you examine it. Each breaking news card consists of a card's title, lore, a historical fact that made the news at that time, and 2 gameplay options that will alter the way the round is played. This can be found on the lower left and lower right side of the card. Players will choose one of the effects to take place for the current round, and each breaking news card is discarded at the end of the round. In order to decide which effect will be applied, the players vote. To vote, simply read the card's 2 options. First read the option on the left, then the option on the right, and the player who wants the first left option will vote with thumbs up. The player who wants the second right option, they vote with thumbs down. And after reading both options, all players should extend a closed fist over the main board and count 3, 2, 1, and then reveal their selection, either thumbs up or thumbs down, which respectively is going to mean left option or right option, indicating the choice. The option with the most votes will take effect in the game this round, and the player with the highest ingenuity rating breaks ties in case of ties. 5. Earn funds based on ingenuity. This is simultaneous. You increase the funds at your lab by the amount indicated under your player's ingenuity position. That means, for example, for the green player, they gain 4 funds. That means I go on my personal lab and add here 4 funds. 5 plus 4, they will give me a total of 9, rotating the dial and showing that I have now 9 funds to continue. 6. Draft equipment. I remind you, for the first round, only for the first round, we start from step 6 of the upkeep phase. So this will happen starting the game. The next round we're going to play all the previous steps. So first slide any remaining equipment tokens to the right. For example, if it goes something like that, slide it to the right and repopulate from the stack respectively. Remember that you should have face-up equipment tokens equal to the number of players plus 1. Then, starting with the player with the highest ingenuity, highest on the ingenuity track, look at the different equipment and select one you would like to purchase. Immediately pay the appropriate cost in funds indicated under the equipment position and move your initiative token from your player insert to the slot where the equipment was. That means that if, for example, the blue player is on the top of the ingenuity track, they will go first, they will select what they want based on their plans, they're going to place their initiative marker here, take this and place it on the player board, and the rest of the players will do the same. So let's say red wants this one, purple wants to get a cheap one, and the green one gets the most expensive one, because of this is what they wanted to do and pick up. Now, keep in mind that this will determine turn order in the player phase, and the order is determined from left to right. That means that first we'll play green, then red, then blue, and then purple. You may immediately place the equipment into a position on your lab, and each slot has a different bonus. By placing the equipment on a slot, you immediately gain that bonus if able. There are 4 slots. And once you cover them, you decide which one you want to take, you will be gaining this bonus immediately. So in this case, let's say I want 2 more ideas. I have 3, I want to have 5. I will cover this, insert it in this slot, and then I will grab 2 more ideas as a bonus. The same will happen for more players in this stage. You are going to take 1 lab equipment in each of the 4 rounds of the game, so essentially at the 4th round you will be having 4 equipment covering all 4 slots. 7 is activate lab equipment, which is also simultaneous. Last, activate all your lab equipment. In the first round you will only have 1, in the 4th round you should have 4, and activate them again and bonus in any order you wish. Once all players have concluded all the steps, everyone flips the reference card to the player's face, and then game proceeds to the player's phase. So let's say here was the 2nd round, and let's say I had this stage. If I were to activate my lab, I would gain from this equipment 1 chemistry resource, and from that equipment I could pay 1 chemistry resource already available to me to convert it to 2 physics resource and update my stock respectively. I'm not obliged to use all of the equipment. The second phase is the player phase, and again there is a nice description on the player aid where it shows the 2 options that you have, either placing a lab assistant or using a switch, and the free actions available to the players. In the player phase, all players act based on the order of the initiative tokens which the players have from in the previous upkeep phase by selecting their respective equipment. During your turn, you can either place a lab assistant on a spot, eligible spot, or use a switch. There are also 2 free actions that you can take anytime during your turn, and when you have either placed all your lab assistants or used all your switches, then you end your turn and it's you're out of the game. So essentially in the game, when you have either played 1 lab assistant or used 1 switch, then you have ended your turn, and then it's the next player's turn, which they also have the same choice to either place an assistant or open a switch. Every player goes around the table doing that, alternating, selecting what they want to do based on their possibilities and options and plans, and then once all players have done that, the player phase concludes. So let's see where we can assign a lab assistant to. You can place your lab assistant in several locations, but by doing this you effectively lock the location so that no other player or lab assistant can place their piece on this location for the rest of the round. So the options are the following. First, you can send one of your assistants to activate lab equipment. You place a lab assistant on an equipment token in your lab and gain the benefit or perform the action allowed from that equipment. You may also assign a lab assistant to the position that grants any scientific resource respectively. So the options on your personal lab are two: either sending an assistant, for example, on an equipment. In this case, it would award me 1 chemistry resource, or on this one, I can make a conversion, giving 1 chemistry resource from my stock to convert it into 2 physical resources from the pool. Or I can send it on this spot here, where I can gain 1 scientific resource, either chemistry, physics, or engineering of my choice from the general pool. Another option is to benefit from available Inventor hex tiles conversions. These are Inventor hexes already placed on the board. You place a lab assistant on an unoccupied bookcase on top of an Inventor hex, and then do the printed conversion by giving that book's base owner the needed resources and gaining the benefit from the common supply. Or if you own the book base yourself, you give the needed resources to the common supply and gain the conversion. So for example, as long as it's free, meaning that it doesn't have any other lab assistant on top of it, I can take my lab assistant and place it either on my own or on an opponent's bookcase, which is sitting on top of one of the lab the inventors. So let's say I want to use this conversion for my plants. I place it here and I can exchange 1 physics resource to 2 ideas. I need to pay the physics resource to the owner of that inventor, which is the red player. Or I could even use my own inventor hexes. I place a lab assistant on top of my own books, and then I pay 1, in this case, physics resource to the general supply and gain from the general supply 2 chemistry resources respectively. The only limitation is that you can do that as long as there is no other lab assistant on a bookcase, whether it's yours or an opponent's, meaning here I cannot place on Louis Pasteur a lab assistant, even if I wanted to, because it's already occupied and unavailable. Third option is to increase your ingenuity position. You place a lab assistant on an unoccupied ingenuity location and pay the indicated number of ideas to the common supply. Then your ingenuity token exchanges position with the ingenuity track position of the next higher ingenuity token. You are allowed to use this action even if you are occupying the first position yourself in the ingenuity track, and while it might not increase your ingenuity position any further, it does make more expensive other players to move you down in future placements. So simply to demonstrate this, if I were to place one of my lab assistants here, I would pay 2 ideas to do so. I can select any of the choices, but of course I want to go for the cheapest one. And then I exchange my ingenuity marker with the one in the highest position, like that, increasing my ingenuity. Another option you can have is you can place an assistant here on this spot. There are 3 spots there, to collect an experiment token. You place a lab assistant on the unoccupied location on the experiment token area. You pay exactly 1 engineering, 1 physics, 1 chemistry, 1 idea and 2 funds to draw the top experiment token from the pile. Keep this token secret, and at the end of the game you may assign any leftover resources to this experiment, and if you have all the required resources indicated on the token, you receive the indicated victory points. So let me show you how these look like just to get an idea. So for example, if I drew this one, if at the end of the game I can assign to this experiment token, which is hidden in the course of the game from other players, 5 chemistry resources and 2 funds by spending them, then I'm awarded 2 victory points. And this is the only way to get victory points from any leftovers, so make sure to plan ahead and you don't have any wasted resources and funds. Last option, again, all of these are summarized nicely on the player phase help card. So last option is to place an lab assistant on this spot to refresh inventions or inventors. So you place one of your lab assistants on an unoccupied refresh location, let's say this. You pay exactly 2 funds, and you may either replace all the inventions, all the inventors, or both in the respective offer areas. To replace, you place 3 of those token cards in the offer at the bottom of the respective stack or deck, not authors, inventors, sorry, at the respective bottom of their deck or pile, stack, and then you replace them, refresh the offering areas with the same way like we did when we started setting up, filling the respective spots either for inventors or for inventions. After you have done so, you may immediately use one of your switches from your personal lab to spend it and switch it on to either recruit one of the inventors or conceive one invention, in this way paying normal cost as usual. So there you have it. You have seen all the locations that we can place our lab assistant and what we can do with a lab assistant. But what about switches? We said that we have all these switches. In each round we have 4 switches to switch on and do something. What do they use them for? Because in my round I can either send in a lab assistant or switch on one of my switches to do something. I can use a switch, rotate it from left off position to its right on position, and you can use one of your active switches to do one of the following. Recruit an inventor. In this case you pay the indicated cost of funds at the bottom of the inventor card. Choose and gain an inventor card from the inventor offer to your hand. You may not place the inventor yet. You just keep it next to your lab, face up. You may also take the corresponding inventor hex tile matching that respective card. So if I paid 6 funds to get Albert Einstein, I go through the pile of inventors and I get the hex. So I take both of them and place them next to my player area, next to my lab. And if I've done so, I will slide all the remaining ones in their position. So for the benefit of example, let's say I took Marie Curie. That means this will go on the next slot and a new one will be placed in its respective position. Another option is to conceive an invention. Inventions are over here, I remind you. You pay the indicated cost of ideas, so we use ideas to get inventions. So let's say I want the light bulb, I need to pay 2 ideas. I spend them from my personal stock and I give it to the general supply. I pick up this hex and then I do not place it yet. Similarly, like with the inventor cards, I place it in my hand, hidden. Remember, I have a hidden hand of various invention hexes, which is not revealed to the other players. Then I slide the remaining hexes in the offer towards the least expensive, so the one costing 3 ideas will go in its position, and then a new one is going to fill in the gap so that we have again 3. Third thing I can do by turning on a switch is to place an inventor. I choose which inventor I want to place and pay one of the inventor's scientific resources to the common supply. If the inventor has 2 scientific fields, you must choose one of those that you want to pay. So for example, if I want to place Albert Einstein, he has 2 scientific fields, both physics and chemistry. I can either choose one chemistry resource or one physics resource to pay to the supply, general supply, and be able to place it. Otherwise, if I have another inventor like Zeppelin, for example, von Zeppelin, you have to pay the matching color and indicated resource, which is one physics resource exactly. If it has 2 fields, I can choose one of the 2. I place the inventor. I place the inventor hex on an eligible spot on the hex grid on the player board, on the main board. And eligible spots for inventors are any spots that are not adjacent to any other inventor. You can place inventor adjacent to the round marker hex, which is this one, or to other locations respectively. But you have to abide by the rule. I cannot place, for example, next to another inventor, my inventor. I can place him, for example, here or here. Here it's illegal because he would be next to cold. But here is something that I could do, and it is eligible spot since there are no other inventors next to him. Now, as soon as you place the inventor hex, place one of your books bases on top of them, like that. This signifies that this inventor is active, and any player, including you, may place a lab assistant on the bookcase in order to gain the inventor's convention. Of course, also it indicates that this inventor is working for you. After placing a book base, immediately gain a number of ideas indicated on the right side of the inventor hex. This would be this one. So the main way to get ideas is by hiring inventors, which they give ideas and it's thematic. So after I've done all this, I would grab 3 idea tokens from the pool and put them on my general supply stock. Once you have placed the book base and gained ideas, place the inventor's card on an available spot at the bottom of your lab where it becomes immediately active. You have 3 slots, as I mentioned before. If all spots are occupied, you may choose to replace one of your 3 inventor cards and that you have with a new one, and if you do so, you simply discard the inventor card, effectively losing it, and the inventor hex remains on the hex grid regardless of what you do with the corresponding card. Now, the last thing I can use a switch for is to place an invention. So in my turn, I can switch on one of my switches to pay to the common supply the cost of scientific resources indicated on the left side of the invention hex. So in this case, if I wanted to place first locomotive, I would pay 1 physics and 1 engineering resources to the general supply. Then I would place the invention from my hand on an eligible spot on the hex grid, and that spot must be occupied, unoccupied, and adjacent to an inventor whose adjacent edge matches the invention scientific field color. If there are more than 1 inventors with an available adjacent edge matching the invention, then you get to choose where to place the invention. By placing an invention like that, so I put next to Henry Ford, either here or here, matching the color with one of his edges, the first locomotive, I pay the resources, and then I gain the reward, which in this case is advancing in one of the 3 tracks as explained in a sec. But you see, in here it will give me 1 advance on the industrial track, the red one. It could be that another invention lets me advance, for example, this one, 3 spaces on the academic, the purple one. Or the last one could be the economic, the green one, which are on the top right of the board. The 3 tracks. The industrial, economic and academic tracks represent humanity's advancement in respective fields. After placing an invention, you immediately get to advance on the appropriate track as seen before based on the icon on the right side of the invention itself. When you reach or cross a milestone bonus, you get that bonus immediately, and all players who cross a milestone will gain that bonus. So in the previous example, let's say it was the red player's turn and they placed the first locomotive, giving them 1 advance. That means they will gain 1 advance here. So in the course of the game, players will have various advancements from their inventions. So they will be moving up all of them on these various tracks, trying to get both the bonuses awarded, but also as high as possible on the various tracks. And again, whenever you pass 1 bonus, like here, gaining 1 inventor, or here, gaining 1 invention, or here, reclaiming 1 of your switches back on, or 1 idea, or any 2 of the scientific resources, you gain all this by passing or reaching them. If after advancing on a track, you're now the player who has advanced the furthest on the track, you take the corresponding track medallion, and track medallions grant unique passive effect that they are can be used immediately. So in this case, green player is ahead on the academic track and they would gain the academic medallion. The purple player is ahead on the economic track and they would gain the economic medallion, and the purple player also, they're ahead on the academic track and they would gain the academic medallion. So the industrial medallion allows you to use engineering resources as any other scientific resource when playing to place specifically inventions, and only then, so making it like a wild joker. The economic medallion allows you to use chemistry resources as any other scientific resource when playing to place inventions, and the academic medallion allows you to use physics resources as any other scientific resource when playing to place inventions. So chemistry, physics and engineering. This will act as a joker, any resource, scientific resource, for placing inventions only if you own that medallion. It is common for the medallion to commonly switch hands in the course of the game. That's normal between players, because they compete on these 3 tracks. It is important to climb on the tracks in order to win victory points. At the end of the game, the player who has advanced highest up the track wins 8 victory points, and when a spot is locked, the next highest spot is available for locking by other players as well. You could lock 2nd and 3rd place as well if enough players are playing, and the 2nd highest player wins 4, the 3rd highest player wins 2, and the lowest player wins 1, and everything is summarized on this slot here. So you are getting essentially a lot of victory points by climbing up those tracks. There are a couple of symbols at the inventors and inventions as well, but they're very easily summarized in the rulebook, and they make sense after a while. For example, this one means that you pay exactly the number here of that resource to gain what is on the right of the arrow. If it has a slash like this one, it means that when placing this invention, you gain the bonus. Keep in mind that when people are placing the invention, besides gaining the advancement on the track, they also gain the instant reward at the bottom of the invention, which we didn't mention before. So when the red player before placed the locomotive, they would advance, they would pay, they would advance on this track, but they would gain also the ability at the bottom. The symbols are simple, so conversions on the inventors, or bonuses, instant bonuses on the inventions. So switching back a switch, gaining any 4 of the scientific resources. Here the person placing this invention gains 6 physics resources and all other players gain 1. Here you get to place 1 more invention minus X cost from paying it when you do so. You can have grabbing, stealing here 1 inventor from other players. This is to steal something, etc. So everything is summarized, and I'm not going to spend more time to explain all this. Now, a last topic to explain, which is vital, is retiring an inventor. When an inventor is completely surrounded by other tiles, they are not considered retired. They are now considered retired, and of course 3 things happen when an inventor is retired. The player, so in this case, let's say someone placed this invention. Now Henry Ford is completely surrounded by inventions, so he's considered retired. 3 things happen. The player who owns the inventor must now remove the bookcase from that inventor. Lab assistants can no longer be placed on that inventor's tile. So this goes back to the red player, and you can no more place in lab assistants on Henry Ford. Second, the player who owns that inventor must also discard the matching inventor card from their lab, effectively making it inactive, and they can no longer use the inventor's ability. Third, the player who placed the last tile and retired the inventor gets to take the pouch and randomly draw from the pouch 1 of those tokens, the breakthrough tokens, which award victory points and keep it secret for him or her for the end of the game. So essentially this is something for the other players to try to surround your inventors with inventions so that they can retire it, so that they restrict their ability from use from you, but also themselves are gaining breakthrough tokens as compensation and as reward. So they really have a benefit to surround your inventor and take it out of commission in retirement, take him out of into retirement. So it is essentially in the gameplay, and it's a very clever way to chase your opponents. Keep in mind that there are additionally 3 actions that they are on the top left side of the board. You can see them here. So additionally, each player during the turn, they can do the following actions as many times as possible, and they won't. Instant conversions. There are 3 different resource conversions that you can do for free. You can convert any 3 matching scientific resources into 1 idea, any 2 matching scientific resources into 1 scientific resource, and any 1 scientific resource into a fund, as many times as you wish. Another free action is to use an inventor's ability. As soon as you place an inventor tile on a hex and also place an inventor card below your lab, while an inventor card is in your lab, you can automatically benefit from that inventor's ability, and some abilities are automatically activated when a certain condition happens. However, some abilities must be activated or triggered in order to be used, and you can spot those with a respective symbol. So as a free action, for example, I can tap Albert Einstein, and you may use 2 switches this turn instead of 1, so trying to get ahead of your opponents, as you can see. So I can tap him, use the ability, and then on the next upkeep phase, of course, I would refresh him. The information on the inventor is also showing the conversion rate that it's on the hex tile, the historical flavor, how many ideas they provided when they were hired, and what was the cost, one or the other, to place during placement. End of the round. When you do not have any actions left, you have placed all your lab assistant and used all of your switches, you do not now have anything actions that you can do, so you can pass for your turn. This means that you can flip your reference card to the upkeep phase and wait for everyone else to enter player phase. Be careful, however, because if you pass, you cannot change your mind and return to the player phase, even if something in the game alters the way that enables you to perform an action that you could not do earlier. And when all players have flipped their reference card to the upkeep phase, then your round begins. End of the game and final scoring. Each player, after the game ends, we've seen when the game ends, either when the fourth round is concluded or instantly when all hexes are occupied, and this is done immediately when this happens. When the game ends, we proceed to final scoring. Each player receives a score from the following 4 sources, and your final score is the sum of all the victory points you gain from those sources. First, you score victory points from tracks. On each of the 3 tracks, industrial, economic and academic, players receive the following points based on their position. The first player receives, for each of the tracks, 8 points, the second 4 points, the third 2 points, and the last 1 point respectively. Any player that did not enter the track, they receive 0 points. Second, score victory points from ingenuity. Players receive their following points based on the position, their final position on the ingenuity track. The first player receives 4 points, the second 2 points, the third 1 point, and the last 0 points. Third source is the victory points from the breakthrough tokens. Any breakthrough tokens you have acquired through the course of the game by surrounding inventors, now you reveal them, you add the value, and you gain the total sum for those. And last but not least, you gain victory points from your experiments as long as you can assign to them the resources needed and you have them on your personal pool at the end of the game. So if I have those, I need to spend them in order to gain 2 victory points. And of course I can use them only for 1 experiment. You sum the victory points you collected from all of the sources, and at the final score is your total amount of victory points. The player with the higher total sum is the winner. In case of an overall tie in the final score, the player higher on the ingenuity track, in this case blue, is the one who wins the game and is declared a winner. And this is how you play Age of Inventors. There is of course an additional educational variant that is very fun, and you can also guess the age of the inventions and the time that they were invented. There is also a solo game included in the rules, but for the moment this is everything you need to know on how to play Age of Inventors. So there you have it. This is Age of Inventors. I have to admit that this is a new company, so I was really not expecting much, or at least I was expecting an okay game. I was really blown away when I got to try and play repeatedly the game. I had a ton of fun. I really like, first of all, the theme. The theme is amazing. I think it's fascinating to get to play, you know, this fascinating era, get to invent precious things, get to support the brilliant minds that are behind it, in the lab that really runs behind all of those inventors, etc. But it's done in a really slick and straightforward way. So the rules are very thematic, and they're also very make sense in a way. So you know what you expect. So I didn't find anything out of the ordinary. The game has some iconography, but I think you get used to it very easily. It has a lot of options and a lot of replayability. First of all, if you play any of the 4 boards, the 4 labs, they are double-sided, which means you can play 2 different variations of the same asymmetric board. So that means different abilities and different starting resources and different bonuses, etc. So this is really cool. You get to run your own lab, so you get to run the funds, you get to run the scientific resources, 3 scientific resources, physics, chemistry, and engineering, and you get to learn to run ideas. You want to create ideas, and you gain ideas by hiring essentially brilliant minds, which are the inventors, and you want the ideas for the ingenuity track. So they have really put this ingenuity track in the core of the game, because it drives both the way that you select the equipment, because the drafting equipment is really important to build up your engine at the beginning, but also it gives a lot of victory points at the end, and it's precious. But most of all, the 3 tracks. I've seen games where you try to, climb up the ladder on different tracks and gain victory points. We've seen it in various games that we loved, not to name a few. But I wouldn't expect that the way that you end up on these tracks is really, I would say, fascinating in a way, because you get, first of all, to get your inventors on the board, then you get to place inventions, but you don't necessarily need to put them around your own inventor, because if you completely surround your own inventor, you're going to retire him and lose the special ability of the inventor. So even though you're placing your inventors, you're trying to surround the inventors of the other players, because if you do fully surround them, then you gain a breakthrough token and restrict them from their ability. So this is really cool. And by placing inventions, you gain advancement on the tracks. Those 3 tracks, the academic, the military, and the economic, which really gain award a lot of victory points at the end of the game, but also give you instant bonuses as you climb through those tracks respectively. The game visually is appealing because they have a very simple way to match the inventors with their respective inventions by scientific field. So, for example, a specific inventor, they may have expertise on, for example, physics or engineering, so you can click inventions of the same color next to them. Some of those inventors have dual scientific expertise, so 3 sides can accept one type of inventions and 3 sides can accept a different type of inventions. So all this is really nice. I love the fact that the worker placement is done both with lab assistants that you send on various spots on bookcases on the various inventors, but not only to you, because you'll be only restricted to your own inventors. You can also send it to other players. You just pay them the resource instead paying the bank. Okay, sometimes it pays off and you have to take the bait. You also have your own economy. You can do worker placement on your own board with your equipments, so this can give you a boost, but also various spots on the board. The game didn't feel that I stuck at any given time. I could even do refresh to get all these inventors or inventions out and getting turn on a switch and immediately grab a new one. Switches are brilliant. Both, I don't know how to explain it, but it feels like you're part of a lab when you're switching on things on your player board and things happen. One of the main important things that happen is you conceive ideas, getting inventions. You recruit inventors, hiring people essentially, and then you can either place inventions or inventors on the board by placing the respective hex tile. So, worker placement, tile placement, even voting for the breaking news, which will affect the gameplay for the specific round, and victory points from the tracks. All these blend together exceptionally well, in my opinion, yielding in a robust, simple, but intuitive and genuinely clever game with fast gameplay, great flow, and I would say a rewarding, satisfied feeling at the end that you have achieved something. You have helped humanity in progressing with all these inventions and placing all these things on the board. It's just a strange feeling that some board games deliver it, that you have done something and you're proud of what you have done at the end of the game, and this game delivers exactly this feeling. So check out the description of this video. You'll find timestamps and a link to the description of the Kickstarter page if you want to find out more. It's launching soon. So many thanks for watching. This is Age of Inventors.